Well, over 40 years ago, I was in my doctoral internship at a counseling clinic in Dallas, Texas, and my supervisor, he and I became very close, pulled me aside and said, Les, you're going to do fine in the field of counseling, but there's one thing I want you to work on, and that is you tend to have really strong opinions, and the more you lean in that direction, it's actually going to work against you. You need to work on pulling back on some of this all or nothing black and white thinking that you have. And I was like, well, nobody ever told me that. Nobody ever suggested that that would be something that could be improper. You see, I grew up in an environment where correctness and order and doing the right thing was highly prized. And so I thought that's just what you're supposed to do. This supervisor went on to say that the more you get to know a broad array of people and you hear all the backstories that individuals are going to have, you're going to see that there are just some things, no matter how much you want them to fit into your nice, tight little grooves, they don't. And boy, over 40 years and 65,000 or so counseling sessions later, has he proven to be true. Now, I want you to ask yourself, are you kind of like I was at that time in my life? Are you the kind of person that just likes to be right? And do you have strong opinions? And does correctness matter to you? Okay, that's well and good. And you probably know people that you live with and work with and rub shoulders with who have that same kind of bent. But then do you also, because of that sense of correctness, yours or that other person, do you ever get pulled into non-productive arguments about how life is supposed to proceed? Do you sometimes get impatient with individuals? Are there people that think they have to walk on eggshells around you? Or do you have some folks where you feel that way in reverse? We can be easily persuaded to put life into its black or white, all or nothing kind of thinking. Here's the way things are supposed to be. We like our beliefs. We like our impressions. We like our interpretations. And that all is well and good up to a point. Sometimes we like our beliefs and preferences a little bit too much. There's certain little phrases that I want you to listen for that might imply that you're getting into black or white thinking, or maybe that you hear these phrases from some other individuals. For example, just the simple phrase, I know how things are supposed to be, or I'm right. You can think what you want all day long, but I'm right. Or sometimes when you get into that black and white thinking, you can just think you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about, or that's ridiculous, or I can't believe you would do this, or what do you think you're doing? Or you can't say that, or you can't do that, or where did you come up with that idea or that notion? There are all sorts of little pet phrases that we can have that imply that we're into our black and white thinking. And if you think about it, this style of thinking actually is rather juvenile. You know, an 8-year-old, if they say, well, you're supposed to turn in your homework by Friday, okay, you want them to learn the rules and regulations, or you shouldn't speak back to your parents. That's another rule that you'd like for them to know. And pre-adolescent children learn to think in this black and white, all or nothing thinking, because that's kind of the way their brain operates. It's very concrete. You'd like to think, though, that as you age and mature that you get beyond that, but unfortunately there are many adults who are still in that pre-adolescent style of thinking. And I want to talk with you about 7 different byproducts that can come from this black and white thinking that are not all that great. And I want you to examine yourself, and also I want you to think about some of the people that you engage with. First byproduct that we can look at is the deeper you go into your black and white thinking, the more it leads you towards being a judgmental individual. Black, white, all, nothing implies right, wrong, winner, loser. And so you obviously want to be on the correct side of that equation, so to speak. And so the deeper you go into your black and white thinking, you are judgmental. You don't even know what you're talking about. There can be a condescension, an attitude of superiority. Equality is not something that tends to be in the mind heavily of that black and white thinker. A second primary byproduct of this black and white thinking is low levels of curiosity. When you have this notion that says, hey, look, I already know what's correct. I know what's incorrect. I know how things are supposed to be interpreted. I know how procedures ought to go. It's kind of like a shut and close case. You don't go to that other person saying, well, wait a minute, I've got my thoughts, but what about yours? Who are you and where are you coming from? And especially when it comes to the emotional realm, if somebody's feeling angry and you're thinking you shouldn't feel angry, well, they do. Rather than saying black, white, you can't do this, you ought to do that, you might say something like, tell me why you're angry. I know you're angry at me. I'd like to know. Let's figure it out. Black and white people don't have that kind of curiosity. A third byproduct of black and white thinking is you don't pick up on or you don't appreciate nuance. There are all sorts of things that can go into a person's reactions and responses to life. Let's suppose that I'm dealing with somebody that's in a real foul mood and it just seems as though they're just being snippy toward me, and I'm thinking, hey, this isn't the way you're supposed to be. Then later on, someone pulls me aside and says, this person got a phone call a while back and they learned that they got fired from their job and things have just been really miserable because they've been struggling anyway. Oh, okay. Well, now that I know that's a piece of information that in my black and white thinking, I wasn't even thinking about. There's always a backstory to someone's way of life. The way they do things, the way they think. I remember one fella, he was one of these guys that he just couldn't understand people that were in the homosexual lifestyle until his son in his 20s came and said, Dad, here's where I am. I'm homosexual. And the dad had to kind of think, well, whether I have an opinion correct or incorrect about it, you're my son. And I've got to figure out where am I going to go with this and how are we going to take something that I wasn't anticipating, and that black and white thinking that he originally had, well, it kind of took a turn, didn't it? Nuance, backstory, other kinds of information are something that can be lost on black and white thinkers. Number 4, black and white thinking, a byproduct, can set up easy anger. When you have this black and white kind of thinking, it's easy for you to become easily impatient or annoyed or agitated. You become argumentative. It's like, look, I've already told you how things are supposed to be. Just get inside the groove. And when life just doesn't cooperate, or if people don't appreciate your all or nothing kind of thinking, because maybe they have their all or nothing thinking, anger comes and it becomes a part of the way that you do life. Or number 5, when you have this black and white thinking, it feeds into an atmosphere of defensiveness. Either others become quite defensive around you. It's like, oh, here you come. I don't want to say anything because you know how that guy gets. Or it could be that you feel defensive when they're black and white toward you. It's like, well, as soon as I say something that's not going to fit inside someone else's perfect groove, then this isn't going to be good. So the walls go up. And this is part of people living behind their false self. Number 6, and this is an easy one to figure out, you lose the ability to empathize. Black and white thinking is so intent on having everything right that you wind up being an imposer in the way that you engage with people. And in empathy, you don't impose at all, you immerse. And those are 2 very different characteristics. You can immerse yourself and say, I want to go inside that person's way of thinking and feeling and being. Who are you and why do you feel as you do? And that's a major distinction for the mind of maturity. That heavy adult way of life, that very healthy style, and saying, it's not all about me. I need to include you. Who are you? And you go inside and you try to learn. Not for the sake of gathering information, but just for knowing that person. And then a 7th byproduct of this black and white thinking is life becomes all about function, duty, obligation, conformity, just doing what you're supposed to do. And of course, you know that there's just so much more to life than just simply function. There are all sorts of other kinds of things like emotion and interpretation and then expression and things of that nature. So let's conclude by saying it's tempting for you to think that you can fit people in events and they're nice little slots. But life just has a way of repeatedly reminding you that there are always exceptions to the rule. Or there are unexpected problems that people have, or there can be failures or delights that people have, or experiences that you didn't really take into account. Many things can say, you know, life really is gray. So if you wish to grow and mature and learn how to deal with life in something beyond just black and white thinking, The next time something outside of your box comes along in front of you, perhaps you can respond with this very simple question. Based on what I'm seeing or hearing in front of me, how might I become a fuller, more balanced person and learn from this experience? Can you think that way? I hope so. I also hope that you gain some benefit from videos such as this. Beneath the video, you'll see the subscribe button. If you've not already done so, I would encourage you to do so. We also have my website, drlescarter.com, and we have my other one, survivingnarcissism.tv, and those are meant to be an augmentation of what we're doing here on YouTube. I know that there are times that you might want to unpack some of your personal and emotional issues with someone in a counseling setting. And in this day and age, people are looking to the online counseling services. I've vetted a group. We have a link below that would help you find some people on that could help you with online counseling. In addition, we have links to my books, my online video workshops, and even coffee mugs. Just know that I appreciate you allowing me to be on your journey with you. And without being too black and white, let's just kind of realize we're gray. We're all kind of in this life together, and we each have some sort of something that doesn't always fit inside a perfect groove. And maybe one of the best things we can do is to say, I have my oddities. I have my differences. I'm sure you have yours. Let's learn from each other. Let's do that.